I'm not sure if you noticed, but there's been some news out of Ottawa recently.
Justin Trudeau pledged today to step down.
Justin Trudeau announced he is stepping down.
The jockeying to replace Justin Trudeau kicks into high gear.
I intend to resign as party leader, as Prime Minister.
Now, I haven't always seen eye to eye with the Prime Minister over the years, that's fair. But he loves this country, he is deeply committed to public service and to a progressive politics driven by fairness and sustainability, and he has done a lot of good. And I wouldn't be in politics at all, but for his call a decade ago to do things differently. He described himself as a fighter in announcing his decision to stay on as Prime Minister while a new leader is selected by the Liberal Party. For my part, I thought he was a class act in his short remarks, especially given how hard it must have been to give up the ball, because few true aces give up the ball without a fight. And he still believes, I know he does, that he has so much fight left. Of course, it's not enough to be a fighter. A leader is only as good as their team, and a messenger needs an audience that is at least open to listening. And for months, we have inadvertently given Pierre Poilievre's Reform Party politics a complete free pass when every question is palace intrigue on our end. We needed certainty one way or the other, and now we have it. Though prorogation isn't exactly a word we hear every day, I get it. So let's be clear about what it is and what it isn't. This is not some undemocratic shutdown of the country. This isn't a caretaker situation. Our government will continue to govern the entire time. I'm the housing minister, for example, with 3 months to get some important work done on social housing encampments and dealing with municipalities and provinces that agree to remove barriers to build. There is absolutely nothing that stops that work. A prorogation simply means a parliamentary reset. All legislative work comes to an end, and the legislative agenda is reset when we come back. In this case, the Governor-General granted the Prime Minister's request for a prorogation until March 24th. And look, it sounds longer than it is because no parliament sits every week. In Ontario, for example, after a very long parliamentary break from early June to mid-October, the legislature rose again in early December, and they're not sitting again until early March, for really no good reason at all. In contrast, this full reset of our parliament will cost us a net loss of 4 weeks that we would have otherwise sat between now and the end of March. Given the current state of our parliamentary dysfunction, as this minority parliament veers into an election, almost all legislation has been stalled since early fall anyway. So losing 4 weeks of a parliamentary sitting and resetting the legislative table isn't exactly a real blow. And you should know that this parliamentary session is the third longest of any session in Canadian history and the longest parliamentary session of any minority parliament. Now, the time will ensure the government continues to deliver within existing authorities, that we have as much stability as possible heading into President Trump's inauguration, and we'll have a shortened window to select a new leader to face off against the incredibly unserious duo of Pierre Poilievre and Jagmeet Singh, to give Canadians a real choice. The Liberal Party has an opportunity to embrace renewal and change, and Canadians and Liberal members can shape what that change is going to look like. What approach do we want from our leaders? What ideas do we want to see championed? What kind of country do we want to live in? There are already any number of potential leaders organizing for what is going to be a short race that should end in March. I'm not on that list of potential leaders, by the way, but I do have some thoughts. First, I am incredibly concerned by just how unserious our politics is becoming. Poilievre and Singh offer anger for sure, and there's a lot to be angry about at times. But to the extent that that empathy is anything other than contrived, it should come with more than slogans for solutions. We face an incredible challenge in President Trump, a housing crisis that has upended for an entire generation that core value of equality of opportunity, and global conflict and climate change that require collective action and leadership on the world stage. In response, Poilievre, riding high in the polls, he releases an amateur hour video of personal attacks, and he calls Trudeau an authoritarian socialist. Because we introduced childcare and carbon pricing? Canada's history is one of social democracy, and the would-be Prime Minister doesn't believe in basic social programs. As far as approach goes, competence is an underrated value in our politics, and a serious and thoughtful politics would stand in stark contrast to what stands across the aisle. To follow through on that approach, though, requires a campaign of ideas. And yes, sure, some people will give out marks for being a good liberal, whatever that means. But the answer, the same as it has always been, the answer is participation. To win, we need people to see themselves in our next leader and party, to be compelled and excited to participate in our politics. For Canadians rightly angry about the cost of housing, for example, the next leader needs to be seized with that frustration, empathetic to it, and deliver a comprehensive and more ambitious plan to address it. Acknowledge imperfection in our efforts. Be honest that nothing will be fixed overnight, and clear that population growth and housing supply go hand in hand. Emphasize the progress we've made in restoring the federal role because there has been significant progress, and then protect and build on that progress by matching the ambition this country had on housing, including social housing, until the 1980s. For the 6 million Canadians who don't have a family doctor, tell us that healthcare is a priority and how the next Liberal government will do everything in its spending power to tackle that most basic of needs. Don't walk away from commitments to sustainability and climate action. That's the bare minimum. Build on those efforts. And hey, while we're at it, maybe revisit electoral reform. Tell us what you're going to do about the fact that this is a country of oligopolies and the lack of competition across sectors comes at the expense of consumer protections and our pocketbooks. What's the direction we should expect your government to take to address productivity? Tell us what you think about fairness and how the government should address wealth inequality and help those in the greatest need. How you'll match progressive policy action with fiscal discipline so that that progress is sustainable and lasting. Yes, we need robust measures in place to address any prospect of foreign interference, but that doesn't mean you can avoid having clearly defined views about Canada's role on the world stage today, especially when we think of the very difficult circumstances we face with the United States. And I'm not asking for a detailed platform, I'm not. I'm asking for more than slogans. Don't play it safe. Style and substance would be nice. Beyond ideas, we need a relentless focus on grassroots engagement. I ran in an open nomination a decade ago because of Trudeau's commitment to more independence and a bottom-up approach to our politics. So what kind of party do you want to build? And where do you think power should reside? It'll be a short race, yes, but that doesn't mean it should be short on ideas. It's not going to be enough to ask people to vote against Conservatives. What direction do we all want for our country? Let's give Canadians a positive reason to vote for us again.